that. All right, so we're going to build a Node.js skill that is called Parrot that's just going to repeat dumb stuff for us. And we'll deploy it and all that stuff. So the first thing to do is, since it's a Node app, we're going to write a package JSON. I'm going to stick a bunch of stuff in it. It has a name, a version, description, some kind of entry, and a couple of dependencies. So we're going to use this Alexa app dependency. We actually don't need Express, and license, whatever. So let's add node modules to this and npm install. Oh, and we should use nvm like 7 or nvm use 7. Yeah, it's not very friendly. Okay, so we've got ourselves a bunch of npms. We're going to use this library called Alexa app. So at the very simple skill implementation is, we're going to call this parrot.js. Require the Alexa app library. Create a new instance of the app. We should call this parrot. And there is the launch sequence, which is what happens when the app starts. Because most of these apps on these devices, you have to invoke it somehow. The first time you as a user invoke it for yourself on your device, it launches. So there's going to be it's going to say a thing when it launches, and in this case, it will say, "I am a parrot." So of course we like tests. So we're not going to go ahead without tests. And let's get ourselves some Mocha. Yum install. And then let's write a test and see what this thing is. That's not what I want. We folder test. And test parrot.js. Okay, and our test is pretty rudimentary. This is just, we're going to boot an Express server. We're going to mount our Parrot application inside that Express server. So this is just a Node.js function app. And we just mount it inside an Express server. It doesn't have to, once we deploy to Lambda, it doesn't actually have an Express server, for example. And we're going to listen on the port, and this is our test. So we should be able to write it works. And let's see, this does nothing. Test. Okay, here's our test. So let's fill out the test. We're just going to write that it responds to invalid data. So it's an Express server that mounts our app. So I'm just going to send it. I do a post to our app, Parrot, and I'm going to send it an empty body. And I'm expecting some response that's going to say, give me some output, which is actually SSML, which is the simple speech markup language or something like that. And so it says literally speak, error, not a valid request. So that's the way, this app will always succeed unless something unexpected happens and say, like, I'm sorry, I couldn't do anything, because we want the device not to fail, we want the device to say the errors. So let's see if this actually works. Woohoo, we sent it garbage, we got back an error, not a valid request. Cool. All right. Let's check our launch request. So this request is a certain type. This is what the Alexa platform sends when a user opens an app or a skill. And we're sending this request of type launch request. There is more fields to it, but for now, this is like as simple as that. And so it's going to respond with what we coded in our parrot.js here, which was, I'm a parrot. And so let's see if this actually happens. Voila, I'm a parrot. Okay. You can curl it. It's just an HTTP server and all that jazz. All right, so we want to deploy this to Lambda. So there are many ways to deploy this basic skill that just says I'm a parrot when it starts. The one is you can put an entire web app with with Express and then say Heroku or something like that. or you can use AWS Lambda, because there's only one entry point, one entry function. Lambda works really well, and you don't need that whole infrastructure. So we're going to deploy this to Lambda. Now, Lambda is a little bit particular. We're going to use an app called Apex. It's a tool to deploy to Lambda, and it wants things in a certain set of directories. So I'm going to move some things around. I'm going to create functions parrot. I'm going to move my, oh yeah, we can get in it if we want. I'm going to move my parrot.js into that functions parrot. I'm going to move my package.json there. So I'm just moving the entire app into functions parrot directory, subdirectory. So when you look at it now, I just have my, we don't need no modules here anymore. I just have my functions parrot with a test, package.json, and parrot.js. So I just moved it into a subfolder, nothing else. All right, so next we're going to go to our AWS console. And so I'm logged in as IT, so you can see this without me. And on Lambda, I'm going to create a new Lambda function. I'll create a Lambda function. I'm going to use Node.js, and I'm going to just do a blank function. You need triggers, so this is going to be a Alexa's skills kit. This assigns a bunch of permissions, roles, and other crap to it. It's like a resource policy. So it's callable from actual Alexa, from the Alexa platform. I'm going to call this, I think we're calling this parrot. We're going to call this Alexa parrot. This is a parrot. Now JS, the code, we don't care. The handler, we could leave the default. This is the entry point, so index handler here. I'm going to choose to create a new role. We're going to call the role, I think I'm saying Alexa parrot. And then I think that's it for now. All right, so here's our Alexa parrot function. It has some code, which is just the dummy for now, as a configuration, triggers, and stuff like that, monitoring for logs. All right, next, we are going to use Apex. So Apex is installed from GitHub. I already have it. You also need to have AWS CLI so that you can push things to AWS, and then you have to configure it with AWS Configure the first time. If you've never used it, I already logged in. Okay, the entry point cannot be our parrot function in parrot.js, because that doesn't export anything other than the actual Alexa app. So we're just going to create an index.js here. And that one is going to say require our app, and then Alexa app has a function called Lambda that exposes its entry point to Lambda. So exports handle, which is what Apex configures by default, is parrot Lambda, and that's how it knows what to call. So Apex wants a project JSON at the very top. So Apex is deploying multiple functions at a time, usually. So that's why this folder structure is there. It's a package, it's a project JSON. And so this is called, the name is Alexa. This is going to create for each function Alexa underscore something. So remember, I created Alexa parrot. It's going to create Alexa underscore parrot, Alexa dot whatever other function I have there, or underscore. Okay. And then I'm a parrot, and then there's this role. It comes from my I am here. So let's check that it's actually correct. So I created a role for my parrot thing. Here it is, and here's the URN to that role. It's correct because I've done this before, and I think they get unique numbers. This is our IAM user, so they don't change here. Okay, so this is the deployment story. So let's go back to Lambda. We still haven't pushed any code to Lambda. We still have our default code that's here. So I think we are basically done, and we can just do Apex deploy. And there you go. Now next, once we have our code, we actually need our intent to do something. You can't test an Amazon skill without any intent. Launch intent is just not enough. They have something in the UI that doesn't let you do it. So let's write an actual intent. This goes in our parrot.js. And the intent is going to be called repeat intent. It takes a parameter, which is called slot. The key for that is value, and we're going to expect a number. Now, this is a very rigid set of things that it can accept. You can't accept star whatever. You can't say, like, accept a word. You have to accept one of Amazon.something, or you have to provide a list of custom slots. So for artsy is about intent, we actually provided a list of artists, because Amazon's list of artists doesn't have anything around visual artists. And then the utterances are examples of what you're trying to say. So typically, what I want this to do, I want to say, Alexa, ask Parrot to repeat 3, and I want it to repeat something 3 times. I'm going to take a number. So this says repeat the value. Value request slot value. We can default it to 2, and it will say, you said something, and then that number of times will say, I repeat, you said something. It's a very, very smart skill. Okay, of course, we can do it without tests, because, how dare we? I'm not writing code without tests. So here's a little test that responds to a repeat event. We post to Parrot, and this time you can see the request has a type, intent request, the name of the intent being invoked, and the value that I'm passing in. The Alexa platform will do that. So when I say Alexa, ask Parrot to repeat 2, it parses what I said, it packages this, it identifies the intent from the schema, and then sends it to my skill, then gets whatever I'm saying back and spits it as waveform to the device. And so I expect it to say, you said 2, I repeat, you said 2, I repeat, you said 2. Let's make sure this actually works. npm install. I'm sorry, I'm not using yarn. Shame on me. Yeah. Okay, here's my parrot, and look, it all works. Great. So now we can push this to, we can push this up, and it's going apex deploy. Here's a new version. So interestingly, when you deploy to Lambda, all your environment is blown off, and it's like a full new version of an app. So something to understand, Lambda is not a infrastructure where you have settings that persist across versions. So every time I do apex deploy, it's like a new world. So it's a new function. Actually, you have access to functions with all the versions as well, if you want to. Lambda is interesting like that. We don't use any environment here, but that's something that you see otherwise. Okay, so we have a Lambda function. We still need to turn it into a skill. So we go to developer.amazon.com. We sign in. To click Alexa, and then it's very confusing. You have to click on Alexa Skills Kit. All right, add a new skill. We're going to call this Parrot. Invocation name is Parrot. Next. The intent schema and the sample utterances is something we can generate. So let's write a little bit of code to do that. We'll call this skill.js. And it's just we require a Parrot app, and we show the schema and the utterances. It's something that the library that we use does. Node skill.js. Okay, so here's our intent schema. That's basically what we put in the code. And here's our utterances. So here it just says repeat value. And next, so it's going to generate. It's going to learn from this interaction model and do smart things on the side. We want to call Lambda in North America. We need the Lambda functions ARN, which is here. And then we can test this from here. So we can say, ask Parrot to repeat 2. And you can see this is the XML response that came back. It says, you said 2, you said, I repeat, you said 2, and so on and so forth. Next. We don't care about this. This publishing information is for submission and stuff.